Hey y'all, welcome back. Today we are going to be doing a simple everyday enhancing makeup look using the personal color palettes. So if that sounds interesting, let's jump right into this video. I've already done my foundation, concealer, and set everything down with powder off camera so we can really focus on enhancing our complexion using the seasonal color palette. A few videos back I talked about the generalization of the 4 main color palettes, which are winter, spring, summer, and autumn, which are the same seasons that we experience here in the real world. If we dive a little bit deeper into each of the 4 seasons, you'll have 3 sub-seasons within each season. That gives us 12 additional seasons. When you just see something like winter, spring, summer, autumn, it gets a little confusing. You're like, that doesn't quite line up with me. That's where the 12 seasons come into play, and then you're really gonna see, oh, that matches me a little bit better. Today I'm gonna show you a look using the soft summer color palette. That is where I fall into. That is cool and muted. That means there isn't a high level of contrast between our skin, our eyes, our hair. Everything tends to be a little bit more on the cool, slightly grayish side. I'm going to start with highlighter. I'm going to be using my Laura Geller Baked Highlight in the shade French Kiss with a rougher number 20 brush. When I'm enhancing my skin tone, since I have a lower level of saturation and contrast in my skin, I don't want a highlight that is too intense because that's not going to be something that really would happen every day with my skin. I'm looking to enhance what naturally is kind of occurring in my skin. So I want a little light. This will help create a little bit of dimension without being too shimmery, too glittery, too reflective, or creating too much contrast from the rest of my look. I want to add a little bit of pop, a little bit of sheen, because I like a little bit of highlight. I use the Wet n Wild Mega Glow in Blossom Glow. Same rougher number 20 brush. Take a tiny bit right on the high point of the cheek over top of the Laura Geller highlight. And by keeping it just to the high point of the cheek, it's going to meld into the previous color applied. Add a little bit of pop so that way it's really accentuating the very highest point of my cheekbone. When you're applying your cheek products, normally you'll have blush, bronzer, highlight, sometimes contour. The general rule of thumb is whatever you apply last will have the most impact, with what goes on first having the least amount of impact. Since I do have oily skin with larger pores, I tend to apply highlight first, so that way I have that light reflection in the background, but it's not going to be the most prominent thing that you see, which is going to mean texture will be less noticeable. For bronzer, I'm going to use the L'Oreal True Match Lumi Bronze It. This is the shade 01 Light. I'm going to be using an e.l.f. powder brush. I like a bronzer that leans a little bit more on the cool, slightly grayish side. When I tan, my skin does not become overly orange or overly bronze. That means a shade like that would really stand out. So by using something like this with a large, fluffy brush means I'm going to have less of a concentration of color on the skin, but I'm going to also create more of a realistic flush of warmth. I don't generally contour on an everyday basis because it's a step I don't always take, and it's not a step that everyone needs to take. I like to keep bronzing and contour very separate. I've done a beginner-friendly makeup series, which I'll have linked down below. So if you're curious about how to apply your contour versus how to apply bronzer, that will be a great video for you. This bronzer, it has a little bit of coolness, but even though it's coolness, it's giving my skin a bit of warmth. That way my skin just looks a little bit more lively. It's not taking the centermost stage, as being this kind of in the middle layer. By adding our highlight bronzer in the middle, then blush on top, bronzer is going to fall into the background, creating more of a suggestion of warmth to the skin. For blush, I want to use something that is on that cool, muted side to go with my soft summer coloring. I'm using this blush from Wake Make. This is in 03 Lavender Delight. With shades like this, it's got a cool tone, but it almost has like a grayish feeling to it, which means it's a little bit more desaturated compared to something like a Dior Rosy Glow blush. And by using a brush like this that is a little bit more fluffy, I'm gonna get a softer diffusion of color. Since my soft summer color palette is a lower contrast season, I don't want to have anything anything stand out too much because that is not going to flatter my overall tone the best. With creating something like this, which is going to be more of an everyday enhancing look, you just kind of want to take what you naturally find in your skin, those natural tones, and really play them up, not letting anything have too much focus over the other. You want everything to have a nice harmony, a nice flow. That way it's just kind of like a you, but better. It's like, are they wearing makeup? Are they not? As far as saturation goes and talking about something that is more muted, more of a gray cast, the Wake Make blush is more of a kind of grayish purpley pink. It almost has a dusty quality to it. That gray cast really stands out when you compare it to something like the Dior Backstage Rosy Glow Blush. This is a little bit more subdued, where this pink is more vibrant. You can see they're both a cool blue based pink. This one has a clarity or a brightness to it, where this one is a little bit more subdued. It's more toned down. It's more muted. That's why a shade like this works better for my skin versus something like this. This is the shade that I can make work for my skin, but it becomes more of a focal point where something like this just kind of blends and melts into the skin. For eyes, I'm gonna be using the Etude House Dusty Cat palette. First shade in the palette called Pink Paul, using a rougher number 15 brush. And this is just gonna help me create a kind of gradation of color from my skin tone to the shadow I'm applying on my eyes. The shades do have a little bit more of a sheerness to it. If you're someone whose kind of personal coloring falls into that more muted spectrum, that lack of pigment is not a bad thing. It's gonna allow you to create more of a watercolor effect where everything has a nice kind of veil of color, but you're still getting that color payoff. My eyes are slightly hooded and downturned, so I like to lift everything at the outer corner, almost from the corner of my lash line to the tail of my brow, and just work everything up. That will give me a little bit of a lift without having to do any type of graphic liner to pull the eye up. It's just a gentle suggestion or an illusion. The middle shade in the palette, called My Dusty Cat, start at the outer corner of my eye, work it into the socket, and then blend through. I want the most concentration of this color right here in the outer corner. Then when there's less on my brush, I'm gonna work it up and out to give that lift. But you can see we're creating shape without anything being too harsh or too stark. It's very soft. Adding a second layer, really focusing this more on this outside corner, and then after I've buffed it in, I'm gonna pull it in a little bit because I do want a little bit more intensity on this outside corner just to create that lifted illusion. Rougher number 28 brush, third shade on the top row, called Cat Punch. Work it from our lash line across the eyelid right up to that color we just applied. Rougher number 15 brush, no additional product, and I'm just going to windshield wiper motion between those two shades to kind of diffuse everything. Second shade on the top row, called Cutie Cat. Press over the ball of my eye, the round part right in the middle, to give my eyes a little bit of sparkle, a little bit more dimension. Rougher number 15 brush, the Laura Geller French Kiss highlight. Apply this to the very inner corner of my eyes. I want to brighten this area up, make it look a little bit more awake and fresh without adding an obvious glitter, because with my coloring being more muted, having that lack of contrast, anything too glittery or too shimmery, it's gonna cause too much tension. A little bit just over the ball of the eye will just kind of keep everything soft, but add a little bit of fun kind of sparkle that catches the light. Rougher number 28 brush, first shade on the bottom row, called Cool Luck, and I'm gonna hug this right here at the outer corner of my lower lash line and just wiggle side to side, taking it about halfway across and then flicking up that same direction that we applied that shadow. It's just gonna add a little bit of definition and shape to the lower eye while enforcing that upward lift to create the illusion that the eye is going more up versus down. So I've just wiped off my rougher number 15 on a microfiber cloth and blend side to side. Diffuse. When you get to the outer corner, just little buffing motions. The eyes just have a little bit of shape, a little bit of definition, but nothing is standing out like makeup. Nothing looks too heavy on the skin, but there's just a little bit of something, a little bit of je ne sais quoi, if you will. I'm gonna apply a quick coat of mascara to my upper lashes and I'll be right back. For my mascara, I use the Thrive Cosmetics Liquid Lash Extensions in the shade Crystal, which is their black brown shade. When you were looking at the kind of color suggestions for the soft summer color family, they often suggest using kind of like a gray, charcoal, or navy mascara. Navy is a little bit easier to find. I just haven't really found a formula that I love, and I don't know who makes great mascara, but this one does the job for me, and it's a really nice mascara. MAC lip pencil in the shade Dervish. This is one of my all-time kind of my lips but better lip pencils. When I'm filling my lips in for an everyday kind of basis, just to keep things looking nice and enhanced, I would like to use it more on the side and scribble where I want a little structure. My lips naturally have a strong kind of pinky reddy tone to them, so I want a shade that's gonna kind of cool it down, unify the color, because my lips, like many people's, there's different gradients of color within the natural lips. I'm using the Etude House Fixing Tint in the shade 08 Dusty Beige. I don't want a strong lip color, I don't want a lot, so I just want to take a few dots and blot that between my lips, just using my finger to spread that out. I like to add a little bit of shine or a little bit of brightness, but I don't always want to use the gloss. So for that, I'm going to use more of a sheer creamy lipstick with more of a little bit of a light reflection to it. For that, I'm going to be using the NARS lipstick in the shade Cruising. Cruising is a pale pinky beige. Now all I'm going to do with this and apply it more in a dotting fashion and then smooth it out. And that just added that almost like lip balmy sheen back to the lips without worrying about a gloss that's gonna get sticky and kind of create a mess throughout the day. Really loved this lipstick formula for creating a soft but glossy effect. I like to finish off my look with this technique called buffing. Buffing is where we're gonna use a powder with a low level light reflect to it just to kind of smooth everything out, create more of a soft, slightly hazy effect to the skin. For that, I'm gonna use my Guerlain Pressed Meteorites powder, and the 3 shades in here are what we would call color correcting shades. So each one has an opposite color they neutralize. Green, red, pink is going to work on some of your blues, and then the purple is going to counteract any type of sallowness or yellowness to the skin, and the white has a little bit of a soft reflect to it. So I'm going to take my powder brush, and then I'm just going to buff this all over the skin. So this is how I like to use the seasonal color palettes, which for me is the soft summer color palette, to create an easy, everyday, naturally enhancing makeup look. This look is just something that's almost like perfecting. When you're walking past someone on the street, it doesn't read as makeup. It's just like a je ne sais quoi, like I said earlier. It's just you but better, you but fresher. And the coloring is just something that kind of melds into the skin. It's nothing that's going to be overtly bright, nothing that's going to be too draining. It's just that nice curated color for you and your color makeup. If you found this video helpful and informative, make sure you give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and share it with a friend. And if you would like to see me talk about the other 11 of the 12 color seasons, then let me know in the comments down below, because that is something, if you are interested, I would love to create for you. I will see you all in the next video. Bye y'all.